Welcome to Outlaw Woodworking. Today on our log trailer, we shorten up all the outriggers, we install the headache rack, and we start on a drop hitch and our jack stand. And yeah, let me show you how I did it. I decided the first thing I would do is work on the little jack stand for the front of the trailer. That way when I wheeled it around, I could set it down and it would be level. And I recently purchased a wood splitter trailer from Splitfire, and the little jack stand that they had on the front of it I liked, so I decided to kind of copy that style. And it seemed like the way they designed it was pretty stable. It was like a little foot down there on the bottom. So right here I'm cutting all the pieces for it. I did notice this Evolution saw, if you're cutting small 45s, it's hard to clamp them in there. I had to use an external clamp to do it. But I am very happy with this Evolution saw. So there's the foot that'll sit on the ground, and then I need to make this little riser piece. I've been using the square to square this thing up every time, because I've noticed that the little degree marker on the saw, I wouldn't say that's perfect, but I wouldn't trust any saw. I mean, you have to pretty much check it. So there's the foot, and then I'm going to cut some flat stock to go across the top that'll enable it to swivel when I hook it up to tow it. And there's all my pieces. Now I take them up here. I need to grind, get them all cleaned up so that I can start welding them. That jaw horse could almost be up a little bit more, because I kind of have to bend over just a little bit to grind and weld. But here I go, I'm welding the first piece, which is the upright, onto the center 45-degree piece. I might raise this jaw horse up in the future, just because I have to bend over just a little bit, and I can only last so long and my back starts hurting. But right here I clean up the other pieces, get them ready to weld on. It's funny, I pride myself on trying to get things square and straight, and you know, and I'll make all the effort to do all that, but I'll turn around and something will be crooked and I'll be pissed. But sometimes I'll let it go, and sometimes I'll cut it off and redo it. It just depends on what it is. But I do make a conscious effort to get everything really nice and square. Matter of fact, right there, I thought I had it pretty well squared up, but it looks like it's a little narrow on the top. Actually, maybe I did fix that. But this is the foot that's going to sit down on the ground, which will be a nice stable platform for this. The Hobart welder is working really well. I'm very happy with it. If you do buy one, don't bother with the small reels. Get the 10-pound reels for it. I don't know what's going on there. I guess I decided to make a run down through the snow. The TOOLCAT is really nice, but I will tell you that I have found out that the chains on my TOOLCAT have been tearing up my asphalt driveway. So I won't be using chains anymore as of next year. I'll be switching to some rubber tracks. I'm not sure which brand yet, Matte Tracks or Dominator. It'll be one of those two brands made in USA. And the nice thing about them is I can go over the top of the snow instead of having to dig through the snow, which will keep the TOOLCAT up off the ground. Matter of fact, recently, during this video, I actually took the TOOLCAT up to the forest to see how the trail was into the national forest, to see if I could go up and maybe make an attempt to get any dead trees out of there. And I could not get up there even with the chains. So the tracks would be cool, but they're expensive, so it's something that I haven't done yet. Right here, this is the piece that's going to swivel on the bottom, and I want to make it so I can swivel it up and down. I did make a mistake on this. I welded both sides. I welded the two sides, which was fine. That was the correct, but I ended up welding a piece on the bottom, and of course then I couldn't swivel it, so I'm gonna have to cut part of that out right there. That piece right there, I should have only welded half of that, so about 2 inches instead of 4 inches. So I'm gonna have to cut some of that out, so otherwise it won't pivot. But otherwise it turned out good. It supports the trailer really nice and really level. So I'm pretty happy with that. And there it is on the trailer. That's how it'll look right there. I ended up putting it up front further. The next thing I do is start work on the rack that's gonna block the logs from sliding up and hitting your quad or your TOOLCAT or Bobcat, whatever you're towing this trailer with. You don't want the logs to accidentally slide forward and hit you. So right here, it's really cold up in my garage, so I decided to bring the chop saw down in the wood chop. And I'm gonna chop all the pieces for this headache rack. I'll call it a headache rack, basically. It's a little shield to block the logs from sliding up into the next vehicle. So right here, that's what I'm doing. I'm gonna cut all the pieces down here in the shop. It's nice and warm down here, pellet stove running. Must be like 70 degrees down here. There's the first piece. I actually went up and I did some measuring, and I realized that the original bars that I made, which I'll call them outriggers, they go from the trailer and then they go out so that you can haul more logs. I realized that those were wider than my Bobcat TOOLCAT that I'm going to be towing this trailer with, and I didn't want that. I wanted those arms to be the same width as the TOOLCAT, so that if I went through some narrow trees with the TOOLCAT, the trailer would make it too. But if the trailer was wider than the TOOLCAT and I went through, I'd be in trouble. So after deliberation, I figured out that I'm going to need to shorten all the outriggers. So in this part 4, I end up doing a lot more work because I end up shortening all of the outriggers. And right here you can see I want the headache rack to match the outriggers, but the width of the headache rack can't be more than 56 inches, and neither can outriggers. So I had to do quite a bit more cutting and work to change all this stuff. So right here I'm dialing in the headache, I'll call it the headache rack, and I've got the pieces pretty much ready to go. They're all looking good, and I'm gonna have to go up. Now right here, I figure out the outriggers, the dimension of them, and I start changing those because that's 6 pieces I need to change, and I might as well just change them down here in the nice warm shop, because up in the garage it's not warm, it's cold. So I have 6 of these to chop up, and it does look a lot better with these shortened outriggers. And also I realize, I can't, this trailer is really nice, but I can't haul too many logs with it, so I don't want it, I don't want to overload the axles or anything. I'm going to just be hauling 1 or 2 trees at a time, and a couple thousand pounds, and come back home and then do it again. That's kind of the fun of it. So there's all 6 outriggers. I recut all of them. I figure out the angle, and I get them all ready to go back upstairs. There's all the 6 outrigger pieces, and there's all the pieces for the headache rack. And right here I just start cleaning them all off. So right here I figure out I'm gonna clamp these exactly and make them look real good, straight. And I have 6 of these to do, so I basically start tacking all these up. These are the removable outriggers. Once I tack them, I lay them down and in a more comfortable position and just start welding them all. It's fun to make stuff. I think, you know, like I'm telling myself, you know, I'm going to go out and get all these logs and stuff, and I'm sure I will. But really, the fun is in the making of the things, you know, the thinking about things and making it, and of course, you know, I'm sure I'll be making plenty of videos of me out in the forest knocking down trees and loading them on this trailer, which will be fun also. I have the most fun in life outside or in a garage. I've got no desire to be like sitting in a house reading a book. Although I've tried to force myself as I get older to I read some books and stuff, but I really like being in a shop or a garage or outside. Now when I look at it with these shorter outriggers, I really like it. I like the stance of it. It kind of has it's not too big. I can move it around pretty easy. Right there I'm doing the second side. So right here I'm finishing up basically redoing the outriggers, shortening them. And now they'll be the same dimension as the headache rack in the front. Now you can see those two pieces on this front headache rack right there. That was a mistake, so I end up cutting those off. Right here I'm working on grinding all the pieces for the headache rack. The headache rack is the front piece that'll keep the logs from sliding into me, you know, whatever I'm using to tow it with. Right here I figured out that, you know, if I want the headache rack to be very similar in size to the outriggers, I clamp it to the outriggers in the back and then I tack it all together. And that turned out to be a good idea because then it matched pretty nicely. That way all the angles are looking good and matching to the outriggers. And if I ever want to put an inside tub into this thing for hauling dirt or anything, I can. Because the dimensions will all be the same. Not that I ever would. I don't think that's too small for me. And right there is the headache rack all tacked together, and then I just start fully welding it. Right there I kind of clamp it up just to take a look at it, see how I liked it, and I liked it. So right here I clamp it in the jaw horse and kind of finish welding it up. Got a lot of welds to make on it. I decided originally I was going to send this out to powder coating right away, but I decided, you know, in the next series, part 5, I'm going to be mounting a crane on it, and I got to weld some wire mesh on the front of this little headache rack. And I was thinking about it, and I'm like, you know, I should run this thing one season, make sure that I don't have to weld any more stuff on it before I completely powder coat it, because once you powder coat it, it's hard to add stuff to it. So I decided that after I get the crane all mounted and done, and where I think, you know, I have it where I want it, I'm gonna primer it and just spray can it, and then run it for a whole season and see how it holds up, if anything cracks or breaks, and then I can make some altercations before I commit to the whole powder coating. I thought that was a good idea. Although I think I don't see any problem of it holding up pretty good, because I'm not really that abusive on stuff, and I think a couple 1,000 pounds of logs is not that big a deal for this trailer. So there it is right there with the shortened outriggers. And then right here I'm going to finish welding the headache rack. I noticed that I missed some welds the day before. I then clean up, you know, get some of the welds cleaned up. Some of them were a little lumpy, and I grinded a few of them down. Next up, it was time to mount this thing. And what I needed to do is those two pieces on the end, that was one of my mistakes. So I had to chop those things off. And I ended up I never waste any metal. I ended up using all that metal. But right here, I chop those off, grind off all the welds, and then prepare to mount this headache rack on there. After getting both pieces cleaned up and kind of figure out where it's going, I wanted to make sure this thing was level with all the outriggers. So I kind of had to, it wasn't easy, but I kind of had to clamp this thing up there and get it close and then tack it. So right there I have one side tacked, then I measure it, get the other side up to where it's supposed to be, tack that. Then I check squareness with the outriggers. Once I get it where I think it looks good, then I start fully welding all those corners. And that was the headache rack. So the headache rack's kind of where I want it, and it's fully welded, but what's going to happen is, so right here I made six 45-degree pieces about 9 inches long or 8 inches long, and all 6 of these pieces were out of the material that I cut from the outriggers, where I made a mistake and made the outriggers too long. So I ended up making all these pieces right here from that shortened pieces. And these are I'm gonna strengthen up the bottom frame, and you'll see right here, I'm gonna give each one of these bars a 45-degree piece, and that'll make a big difference as far as giving a lot more strength in that bar. It's 1/8 inch. It's 2x2 1/8 inch square tubing, so it's plenty strong, but you add some 45-degree supports, and you just upped your game a little bit. So I thought that was a good idea. The lighting up in my garage, I apologize, it's definitely not as good as down in my wood shop. I never really set myself up for filming up in the garage. I am getting ready to build a new garage where I'm hoping to have some better lighting and more room. So right here, I get 2 of these bars all cleaned up, ready to go, so that I can weld 4 more of these supports in there. And I think that adds a lot to the structure. I think I'm only going to do it one I thought about doing it reverse back the other way too, but I think I'm just going to do it forward. It kind of looks faster that way, like it's going like an airplane or something. But you can see I got the first 2 up there. I'm getting the last one back in the back done. It's funny when I watch these videos and I'm doing the narration. I really have fun making things. Even when I'm watching myself make these things, I'm thinking, man, that was enjoyable. And then when I look at it, or I look at things that I make, that's why I always encourage people to try to make things. Anyway, those were the supports. So right here, I decided that I'm going to put this front, I guess jack stand you call it, foot or whatever it is. I'm going to put this in front of the headache rack. So right here, I'm going to drill and bolt this thing so that it's stable and I know where it's going to stay. So right here, I'm going to basically bolt this foot down. And then my plan is, if you see my Bobcat TOOLCAT right there, so right here I got it bolted, so now I'm getting it in position. And I'm thinking, okay, that's about where I want it to be. So now I want to make a drop hitch on this log trailer. And I didn't really know how I wanted to do this, but I knew I wanted it to be pretty strong. So I basically decide where I'm going to chop it right here. And I try to chop it as square as possible. So right here, I bring it back in the shop. I grind these pieces down and get them ready to weld. Ultimately, I'm going to put a swivel hitch on the front of this. I haven't figured out how I'm going to do that yet. I bought the swivel hitches in the past, but I kind of like to make my own stuff nowadays. So the plan is to make a off-road swivel hitch for this eventually. So right here, I got the pieces kind of straightened out. It's funny, I'll spend the time to put a square on something, and then after I weld it, I'm like, it's kind of looks crooked, but it is what it is, I guess. Anyway, here, this is the drop hitch, and what I decided to do was, I had a couple plans for this actually. I wanted this to be really strong. Matter of fact, I'm going to put probably another 45-degree piece on the back of this, and yeah, right there. I didn't think it looked perfectly straight, but after I looked at it a few times, it looked fine. I'm eventually, I think, going to put a piece on the back of it, but I didn't make a decision at this point. It was really strong, but what I decided to do is I looked at one of my other trailers, and they took some flat stock and they lapped it over the top. So I basically measured around the top of that and cut a piece, and then my plan was to weld it all the way across the top of that thing. So right here I start welding this, basically I'm going to weld this flat plate across and then down the front of this thing, and that's gonna bind it pretty good. And there it is. Now, what I think I'm going to do is run one up the other side too, on the back side. I haven't done that yet though. I'll probably do that when I do the swivel hitch. Thanks for watching this episode of Outlaw Woodworking. And pretty soon we're going to be going out and getting some logs. This thing's getting closer and closer. We've got a crane to put on, and you know, a little more welding and grinding. And then we need to put a coat of paint on it. But part 4, I had a good time and seemed to go pretty well. I like the shape of it now. And anyway, thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe, like the video, and I'll see you next time. Later.